Today we're speaking to Ric De Reuter, who shares his KPIs in very basic terms on how to run a good dealership. It's not a Deloitte masterclass, it's a masterclass in the basics.
Let's jump into it.
With 30 years experience in auto logistics and state-of-the-art locations in 5 major Australian cities, Precar Fleet Services are a premier all-in-one solutions provider for commercial vehicle fleet operators, leasing companies and original equipment manufacturers. Please visit precar.com.au and click on the link to Fleet Services.
The question for me as far as the key things that you operate. So you've taken this business, you've grown it, you've been very successful, which is great, and you've used your interpersonal skills from being a butcher. What are the key elements? If you say a day in the life of Ric De Reuter in a dealership, what does that day comprise of? What are the success factors that you look for or standards you've got in place that are not negotiables in any given day?
That's a really good question, Mark, because after this amount of time, they sort of come naturally. But the question you asked me, it's the little 1% things. I love basketball. Basketball is one of the joys of my life. And still, at my age, I still coach basketball from juniors to under 19s. There was a great basketball coach called John Wooden. I was fortunate enough, I went to the States when I was at Nuttawading Toyota. They sent me to the States and I was in a bar in America. We were watching basketball and there's a guy sitting there and I said to him, I love basketball. Oh, you're from Australia? He said, oh, yeah. I said, I coach a bit of junior basketball. He said, when you get back, look me up. He gave me his details and I'll send you a John Wooden playbook. And in the first page of the playbook was something that I thought I'll never, ever forget. There's 10 people on the basketball court at any one time. And you've got the ball 10% of the time. But what you do the other 90% of the time is what makes a difference. And that means defense or in the right spot and all the rest of it. And I took that to the car business. So the 90% for me is the question you ask, is making sure that every small 1% thing is right. Are the cars clean? Are they the best looking cars in the area in which you work? Do I paint the bumper bar? Do I put new tyres on them? Because to me, it's not a used car. People that are buying it, it's not a used car. It's a new car for them and their family. So all those small things. Are my salesmen clean, neat and tidy? Do they come to work with a white shirt with a dirty stain around it? Certainly not. Are their shoes shined? Are all the banners lined up along the cars evenly? Are the L forms correct? It's all those 1% things. The 90% of the time that I don't have the ball, are things right? So that when I start that car of a morning, I know it's going to start when I've got a customer in it. When we change to daylight saving, do I look at the car and make sure the clock's been changed in the car? Because consumers are smart. They're not silly. They see that 3 months into daylight saving, the clock's still an hour behind or an hour in front. They know that car's an old stocker. It puts them in a position of strength. So it was all those small things that I thought, well, I can do these things differently, then that's going to make a difference to my business. And it did make a difference to my business. We took people on a test drive. We did our 6-point sell and we walked around the motor car and we pulled out our little book and we said, is there anything on this motor car that you can see that you'd like changed or like fixed? And when those things became small and the salesman wrote them down, you knew you were on a winner. They were the owner of the motor car. So that was my philosophy, and it'll always be my philosophy. Anyone, when you've got the ball, can do what you like. But you haven't got the ball, if you're not playing defence or you're not in the right position, the opposition's going to score. And that's the way I looked at it.
Now, Ric, are there any particular financial points that you always look at? So I need to make this amount of revenue per car, like profit, or I need to turn my cars this amount of times a month. Do you keep that in the back of your mind and drive those points?
Again, John, you're exactly right. You can never take your eye off the ball. I remember one of the guys that taught me said, if you can make $2,200 a used car, you're doing a good job. He said, don't worry about all this nonsense about people putting big loads in them and all the rest of it. 2,200 is the magical mark, somewhere between 1,700 and 2,200. You have a little bit of load in there for this and for that, but that's the magical mark. And we always strive. We knew in early days, of course, the world's changed so much, but in early days, we knew that if we could make somewhere between 1,700 and 2,500 a motor vehicle and make the same money out of finance, we knew we were on a winner in those days in used cars. Of course, that's changed. Finance companies are now, they don't perceive the car dealer to be their new best friend. But in those days you could, so if you made 80, 100 grand out of used cars, you'd want to make the same sort of money out of finance. And those opportunities were there. Of course, that's changed. But one thing I think, if any dealer that looked at it and was brutally honest with themselves, somewhere between 1,700 and 2,500 is the magical mark in used cars, in my opinion. So we always strive to be there. There's no doubt that that's all gone out the door during COVID. I hope too many consumers don't look at your podcast, but $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 a unit on some units has not been unrealistic. But, mate, that's a pipe dream. That's not going to happen forever. And unless we go back to doing what we've always done, the proper way, those days are gone, and they're fast disappearing now. There's certain brands that you can make that sort of money out if you're lucky enough to get the car. But where do you get the car from? You can only trade the car, or if you go to open auction, you're only $100 better than the last bloke. So the used car business is changing back to where it was. And that's a good thing, in my opinion, right? Because the operators will come to the top. If you can find cars that are different, rare cars or cars that are not so, out there and do the hard yards, then you'll make your money. But my firm belief is that's where the number is. And that's the number we work on. During COVID, we certainly haven't worked on that. Let's be frank and honest about that. But that's not going to continue.
And as far as sourcing stock is king. Many an operative in the industry has always said that, he or she who has the stock wins. Where do you find the best place to source stock?
Again, Mark, you look at it and it's an ever-changing beast. Wholesalers at some certain times of the year are very, very good because they certainly go in and buy cars off other dealers and dealers that don't want to carry the stock at a very reasonable price. Those reasonable prices are then put onto you as long as you can negotiate with them and know that they're trying to make a big quid out of them. Auction houses, of course, have now come back online. I attended an auction today that started at midday and finished after 4 o'clock. So that's how much stock's available there. And, of course, it's knowing when to buy the stock is what I believe is where the main difference is. If you're in there with everyone else on a rising market, then good luck with that, right? But it's knowing when to buy the stock. And, of course, that flows back to how you control the stock that you have. That's the most important thing. You cannot be stuck with old stockers. That's like having a paddock full of cows that are eating their head off and, you've got nowhere to sell them. And that's what happens. And that's what hamstrings people. So stock control is the most important thing. So, auctions are good at certain times. Wholesalers good at certain times. But there's no better place than to buy a car than as a trade-in off the punter. You get to look at the car. You get to look at the books of the car. You get to look at the condition of the car. You get to look at the market and where the market is on the car. And without a doubt, we make our most money out of trade-ins. There's no two ways about that. We're not paying a wholesaler a lot fee of $750 a car. We're not paying, without being disrespectful, we're not paying Pickles or Man-Hour and Fowles $700 for the privilege or $1,000 for the privilege of buying a motor car and another $500 to ship it to you. You're not paying that with a trade-in. So you can afford to pay a little bit more, but you're getting good quality stock because you're getting a look at it. And if it's not good quality stock, then you move it on.
And then, Rick, what's the ideal stock level that you should hold? What should your stock turn be on your used cars?
Oh, well, that's, again, John, that's an ever-changing beast at the moment. I mean, you have a look at it now with floor plan interest rates, with Redbook, how they value your cars. That's a very hard question to answer at currently. 12 months ago, the cost to hold a used car was around $29 a week. On today's interest rate and today's floor plan, it's $60 a week. So any car over 90 days, you're in big trouble. You're starting to write it back. On top of that, once you discount the car, then you've got, of course, and I don't mind saying, you've got the devil car sales. Once you discount the car, then you've got all the people making inquiries at $70 an inquiry. 5 inquiries, there's the $350 gone, plus your $60 a week in holding charges. All of a sudden, you're losing money. If you're not getting rid of these cars at 90 days on a falling market, you're in big trouble.
Rick, in terms of marketing, you mentioned car sales for marketing your new cars and or even your used cars. But I know you do extensive amount of marketing of your business through social media. Is there anything that really works that you can point out so that works really well for you?
Yeah, John, there's other social media platforms now that you can use. We had a bloke talk to us about social media a few years back. And he spoke to us about Facebook and marketplace and those areas. And he spoke to us about building a community and trying to have a community. And if you can build that community with social media, then the cost of advertising on those mediums is far, far less than anything you'll ever get on car sales. I mean, I think car sales, don't quote me on this, but I think it's up around $70 now for someone to click on your car. And we feed them all the information and they sell it back to us. Whereas you look at the other platforms, we advertise extensively on Facebook, and I think it costs us 14 cents a lead as against $70. So we're very big on that. We also make sure that in our local marketplace, we advertise there. We're big on Gumtree. Gumtree's now starting to get a hold in the market. So all those areas we tend to advertise. We certainly went away from newsprint. In the early days, we were big in newsprint. And we find for an instant hit, we still find that television is okay as long as you target where you want to be. 13 years ago, I started advertising on Friday night football for my area. We used to put 6 15-second commercials on there, and they were quirky commercials. There's a couple online. They're ridiculous commercials, actually, but they worked for us. And why we decided that was we thought, well, our demographics is this in the country. Most of the young people or the people in our demographics play football on a Saturday. Most of their girlfriends or their wives play netball, or they have some association with so they're at home on a Friday night watching the football. We're going to advertise there because that's the marketplace we want to attack. Whereas on a Saturday night, you've got some friends around or you've got the people around. Yeah, you've got the football on, but you haven't got the sound up. So we worked out pretty smartly that Saturday night was worthless to us. We started out, we used to spend $14,000 a year, what it cost us, and I think the last contract that they handed me was $250,000 to advertise on the football, and we said we'll give that a miss. So it's finding where your niche is. Fish where the fish are, not where the fish are not. Now, there's that much information out there now on the internet, but if you've got a good social media contractor that works for you or someone in your industry, they can certainly now, with the information available, can see where the customers are coming from and what they're doing. Whereas that's what we've gone to now. We're trying to wean ourselves off the car sales drug and get ourselves involved in other areas where we know that we're getting much more success. And, of course, part of that is you've also got to put in place that you've got to ask the customer where they come from. You came to us today. Where did you come from? Where did you see our ad, or how did you come across our ad? And once you get all that information, then you can marry it all up, and that's where you should be advertising, in my opinion. But that's certainly worked for us. And it's never worked more now than it has in the last 4 months. For some reason, we've exploded on Facebook. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but Facebook to us has been absolutely fantastic. And I think some of the leads we're down to on certain areas that we target is down to 8 or 10 cents a lead.
So when you say Facebook, is that on Marketplace?
Yeah, Marketplace. And then we run our own Facebook page for community-based. You know, we put our cars on there, but we also try to put stuff on there that's relevant at the time, not just garbage. We try to put stuff on there that we think we know experts, but we've got a bloke that certainly helps us, and we try and put stuff on there that's relevant at the time or what we think the masses will want to look at and go from there. So that's how we've gone about it up until now. And it's working very, very well for us. But unfortunately, with the cars dropping in price and people wanting to put their cars on car sales, I would have thought they'd never been happier. I would have thought that anyone that doesn't look at their car sales account now, any dealer principal or owner of the business doesn't look at their car sales account now and say, Jesus, what is going on here, would certainly will rue it, in my opinion.
Thank you for listening. Hopefully you got as much out of the discussion with Ric De Reuter as we did.
Remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify and iTunes, and we'll speak to you again next week.